My feed. Oh, my feed, people. It's awful. Okay, everyone, welcome to another episode of the Value for Value show. My name is Kyrin, host of the Mere Mortals podcast and Mere Mortals in general, and this is one of the branches of that kind of brand. So today's episode, I just want to get into what is a podcast. Now, look, there's many variations that you can do of this. You can go on the technical definition route, which I will touch upon. But I really wanted to start off with something that was I found quite intriguing, which was that there's, I guess, two versions of words. There is the technical meaning, and then there's the meaning that is kind of currently understood by the vast bulk of people, and it's how it's used. And you can see words change over time. And so what is a podcast? Well, I'll start off with the more kind of wishy-washy definition, which is, and I'll do this through a story. So recently it was the 20th anniversary of the very first podcast. And so this occurred in 2003 around July 9th. And this was Christopher Lydon and Dave Weiner. These were the people who Dave Weiner wrote RSS. So the whole system that podcasting is based upon, it was the guy who was doing that. And what Adam Curry talked about recently, and he was the one who suggested that you put an audio file into an RSS feed, and we'll get to that in the technical definition. He was talking about the spirit of it at the beginning. Why did this happen? Why was this created? And he was saying, it was wild, it was exciting, it was mind-blowing. There wasn't a hint of money as motivation to be seen. Christopher Lydon, who was the one who recorded this first podcast with Dave Weiner, he was saying, it was there was a tinkle of experimental adventure. I wanted to talk about the Iraq War was already a moment, completely unexamined and debated. He wanted to talk about that, and he found a way that he could do this through this mechanism of podcasting, which you weren't going to find on the TV or radio stations or things like this. So we can definitely see that the idea at the start of it was this kind of open nature. It was to be able to get your thoughts out, to express yourself, to make it accessible to all, and just to kind of put something out there. And I'm reading this book at the moment called Amusing Ourselves to Death, Public Discourse in the Age of Show Business by Neil Postman. And it's a really intriguing book because it's talking about how basically TV, in his opinion, is a kind of a low quality medium for discourse. It actually makes things worse. And he has all sorts of definitions for this and reasons for this, talking about the visual nature, about how we're moving away from a text-based culture. And I think this probably is an episode that I'll do full on itself about the medium and how this can alter the message and restrict or open up certain things. But I think in this case, we can definitely see that podcasting was actually opening up. It was creating a new mechanism, a new way for people to be able to get into a different, I'd essentially say a different method of communication. So we see podcasting starts off and it's like, wow, this is amazing. This is really super cool. It's a way for people to express themselves, which wasn't able to be done before through any of the other mediums. So super, super cool. Now, let's talk about maybe some of the technical definitions and why there's some current trends which have been moving us away from this, and why we might want to examine this and see if we can kind of keep it open. So I'm going over to Pod News here, and this is by James Cridland, and who I was quoting just from his special happy 20th anniversary to podcast before. And so the technical answer is it's an audio file in an MP3 or AAC format without digital rights management, i.e. you don't have a claim to the digital, I guess, the copyright of it. It's if it goes out to everyone and people can ingest it. It's available to download and it's distributed via an RSS feed using an enclosure tag. You can have video podcasts, but they're called video podcasts. So this would be if you have an MP4 with all of these same attributes. So that's the technical definition, and this is relatively and largely changed over time, over the last 20 years. what people think podcasts are. The most used platforms in the US are Spotify at 24%, Apple Podcast 21%, and YouTube at 18%. And this was from the Edison Research Podcast Consumer Tracker from Q2 21. Now, what's really interesting about this is first the three type of the companies there, and these were the three companies which are actually, I think, trying to move it away or from this openness and accessible to all. And I want to view this through the lens of the four properties that I talked about in a recent episode. This being the value transfer at the very end. This is also having the let me bring them up just so I don't say them. So there's the decentralized, there is the self-sovereignty, permissionless, and value transfer. There we go. So I want to kind of discuss maybe how these four properties, which I was discussing with relation to Bitcoin and to the value for value model and to podcasting, how these are kind of being distorted in these recent trends, which we've been seeing happening over the past 3 to 4 years in particular. So let's start with the decentralized one. And so this is where we can see, okay, it wasn't as decentralized as we thought it was. Although people were still putting out RSS feeds, although there were many hosts who were hosting all of these different feeds, there was a problem with the directory, and this was that Apple was the main directory. And this is where individual podcasting apps, so even though there was, lots of options to be able to host your feed, lots of options to be able to listen to that feed via all of these different podcasting apps, you can kind of imagine it as an hourglass where, lots of space at the top, lots of space at the bottom, and then there's this kind of bottleneck in the middle. And this was actually Apple. And so one of the things that Apple has is a directory, and they've had this since almost the very beginning when Adam Curry kind of gave them his directory that he had, which I think was called iPodder or something like that, or his own podcast directory. And they became the default, the de facto. And what actually ended up happening was if something got delisted from the Apple podcast directory, it essentially got taken off of all of the apps as well because they all reference this one place. So we can see, okay, this actually isn't decentralized. Now, this is great if you trust Apple and they just have a kind of default motto of, will anything that we get in, as long as it follows the the kind of technical definitions of an RSS feed, so it's not having random strings of characters, it's not breaking things, people aren't putting in massive or too big files or too little files or anything like that, as long as it follows like the technical RSS specifications, they would publish it. Now unfortunately this isn't the case, and we kind of really saw this with the Alex Jones deplatforming, which occurred not just on there, but across all social media, where it was like, oh, okay, these guys aren't the Switzerland of the equivalent of the financial Swiss of the world, but for podcasting, no, they have their own agenda, and if someone gets kicked off of from there, they're essentially it isn't decentralized. There is a very central entity in the middle of it. So that was one area where we see, okay, as a private company, Apple is awesome, but you might not want to have it for the main index for people being able to find out, where are all the podcasts in the world. So we can see, okay, decentralized, podcasts is starting to move away from that. Let's go on to the second one, which was self-sovereignty. And this is where people are saying, okay, I've got a YouTube podcast. Now, once again, if people want to use podcast as a synonym for show, and that's the kind of common lingo, I'm not going to fight that at all. But what I would just say is, okay, if you're claiming that's a podcast and your show gets, once again, kind of kicked off of YouTube, yeah, you don't really have this self-sovereign aspect, which is basically being able to own your own content. And if you go onto the YouTube terms of service, you'll see, no, they can do whatever the hell they want with it. If they want to modify it, if they want to alter it, if they want to put ads in front of it or not put ads in front of it, if they deem that it is hurting the YouTube platform, hurting their listeners, the people who are paying YouTube Premium or anything like that, they will get rid of it. That's it. It's all in there. It's all up to them. So once again, if you're calling a YouTube podcast a podcast, it doesn't satisfy this self-sovereign aspect, because you can't host those video files yourself and then YouTube will show them. No, you have to host it on YouTube. So once again, people use the word podcast for a show that's on YouTube. It's very much trending away from the original intent of what a podcast was. Let's go on to permissionless. Anyone can get in from basically any access. There is no guardian. There is no one saying, oh, okay, this is how it's done. It has to be done this way, etc., etc. And this is where we look at Spotify and see they were doing some things like turning off the RSS feed. So if you hosted a show on Anchor, which is a subsidiary of theirs, okay, no, this is not now a podcast because it's not going out to the wider ecosystem. It is only within the walled garden of Spotify, the very opposite of permissionless. And so they were doing this with exclusive only shows. And you could kind of see that through their business model, they needed to become the one and only place you could find podcasts, much like YouTube is the one and only place where you can find videos. The reason this occurred for YouTube was pretty much just the bandwidth costs and storage and hosting of videos that is extremely expensive. Thankfully, with audio, that is not as necessary. And so we can see that, that strategy hasn't particularly worked out well for them. The last one where I would say that podcasting and the trends of the last couple of years trending away from this open aspect into a more closed version of podcasting was advertising. And this was this real fascination with DAI, dynamic ad insertion. And once again, you could kind of see the value transfer, I don't think was a value to the show. And this was just because, dynamic ads, you could say maybe a host read is adding to the product, to the show. You could say maybe a sponsorship, but dynamic ad insertion is, and this is where basically you're listening to a podcast and then bam, an ad is shoved in right in the middle. It can be done with kind of a little bit of grace if the hosts know about this prehand. And so they have like a marker at 5 minutes 20, I took a break, or I was going from one paragraph or one topic to the next. That's an acceptable place to put an ad in, and they can, their hosting service might allow that. But once again, the ad insertion is always a little bit gross because it just has no real connection to the podcast itself. And the reason why this is very popular is because you can change out these ads, and so you can have an ad running for on a podcast episode from 5 years ago that's still getting a lot of downloads. Maybe that company went out of business and they're not paying you anymore. Maybe that product doesn't exist anymore, and so you can just simply switch out that ad, and with another ad, bam, now you can get more money. And this is how a host, the podcast creator, and the ad companies can all kind of basically put more ads into your shows, which once again I think is taking away from the value transfer. I think that is not an addition to the transfer of value to the audience, to the listeners. It's kind of taking away from that. And so those have been four of the biggest trends of podcasting in the recent years. And I think that is moving away from this idea, this definition that we had at the start, which was, one, the technical definition. It was moving away from that, most certainly. Most of these things are not now, an audio file. Okay, a YouTube podcast isn't an audio file. It's not with digital rights management. It's not available to download, and it's not distributed via an RSS feed. We can see, a lot of these things are not fulfilling the technical answer, nor are they filling, I think, the spirit of how podcasting was created, which was with this decentralized nature, with this permissionless aspect, with being able to be self-sovereign of your own content and to provide a value transfer to your audience. Those were my own definitions that I came up with there, but I think those are what the spirit was right at the beginning of podcasting. This was what it was all about. So this is just an episode to talk about what is a podcast, and we can kind of see it's become a lot looser over the years, and a lot of what people are claiming to be to have a podcast now, I don't think fulfills either the technical definition of it, or if you're moving away from that to the spirit of the word. I think it's moving away from that, and which has been sad to see. Tune into the next episode to find out why this is not going to be a problem, because podcasting 2.0 is coming along and helping to reclaim this ground and make podcasting, keep podcasting as awesome as it is, and why these kind of closed models and trending away from openness is not actually going to work in the long term. So awesome. Let's jump now onto the Boostergram Lounge, because I've got a couple of people I want to thank.
Welcome to the Value for Value Boostergram Lounge.
So coming in right at the top here, we have McIntosh. And so I should explain. A Boostergram is a message that you can send directly within your podcasting app, and that message will go to me. Now, typically this has a payment of money attached to it in the form of Bitcoin, because you can do this digitally. It makes so much more sense from anywhere in the world, and it will reach me here in Australia. And you can send a message in, basically a comment on the show. You can have some advice. You can have just a simple thank you. Any of these topic suggestions, all of these are welcome, and we see all of these coming up in here. You can also do it on your desktop version, and if you go to mealmodelspodcast.com/support, I've got a little bit of an explainer there showing you how you can do that. So if you don't want to change your actual podcasting app, you can do it via there. So right at the top, we have McIntosh, and he says, "Interesting, your properties have direct correlation with Bitcoin. Just saying." And then he's got the emoji with the little sweat icon and smiling. "Great work as always, McIntosh from the Generation Bitcoin podcast." He sent in his favorite 2100 sats sent using Fountain. And yeah, look, I I think I mentioned it in the last episode, McIntosh, but I was slightly altering things to fit in these four properties. It didn't 100% fit in nicely. I had to kind of shave off the corners of a couple of things and squeeze it in. But I think the reason that these properties are important is because they are the trends of some of the. I think they are the foundation points of three of the biggest trends that I see coming in these next years. This is podcasting, and the open accessible nature of it, of Bitcoin, of being able to use that in any country, anywhere in the world, with no government telling you what you can or can't do with your own money. And then also with the value for value model, which is being able to, I believe, is the most ethical way of living in the world and earning money. And I'll talk about this right at the end when I'm kind of doing my value for value pitch. We also have a message here from Cole McCormick 1, and he says, "Having the audience fully fund the next episode's release sounds like a potential pitfall. The audience should not worry about reaching a threshold. 2,222, quack, 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 a row of ducks sent using Fountain." Yeah, look, Cole, this was a good point. As I was saying this, I was kind of excited because I'm like, I really like Chris Fisher. I like his shows. And I was like, oh, this is really interesting. I want to see how this goes. And I will kind of keep us updated on how it does go. But the more I reflected upon it, the more I went, how is this that much different from the Patreon model where you have a paywall? Yeah, it's kind of different because there's no explicit. You can still choose the amount that you want to send into the show. But I think it is, like we're seeing with perhaps the podcasting, it is maybe trending away from the pure spirit of what value for value is, which is I provide value up front and then you send me back what you want. And I think this is maybe kind of, it's altering it because now it's saying, I'll provide you the value up front after you've after you've sent me in a certain amount, which is obviously not providing value up front. So yeah, it is kind of an inversion, I think, of the fundamental aspect of value for value, which is I do it up front without expectations. So look, I'll keep an eye on it and I'll let you know. But yes, I agree. The more I think about it, the more I'm like, maybe that's not 100% value for value. So thank you very much for sending that in. And he says, but then there is a blurry line between goals and community. I just don't want to bother people with my bills. It's up to me to make it happen. And then he sends in a satchel of riches, 1,111, using Fountain once again. And yeah, that's the other point. I've been discussing recently on my kind of main podcast, The Mere Mortals, with my co-host Juan. And he's always been a much more ambitious person than I am. He's got big goals, big plans. He wants to do these things. He's very excited. He's always got business ideas going on, whereas I'm the more kind of slow and steady and not wanting to get myself mixed up in things or make promises I can't deliver upon. And he was saying, what we could do is maybe, much like the Chris Fisher is doing, we could have a fund. And so if we get enough in for a certain amount, that will be able to fund us to go overseas and to do these interviews and things like this. And just my initial reaction was like, no, I don't want any part of that. I don't want to make promises. I would feel so uncomfortable sitting on, any amount of money which people have sent in to me and which would have no guarantees of whether I would do what I would say I was going to do. For me, I think the best way to avoid scamming, avoid any conflicts of interest, avoid anything that could be misconstrued is the value for value. I do it up front and it's just there and it's out there, and then I just get back whatever people want to send me. I think that's the way to go. Once again, hold on for until the end of the episodes where you'll hear my real kind of spiel on this and my real kind of conviction. We have Peter coming in at here. Have you considered joining the crazies on the No Agenda stream? I think MMO, so I believe that's Millennial Media Offensive, does Tuesdays live at 6:30 p.m. Eastern for 2.5 hours, and Bowl After Bowl is on at 10 p.m. Eastern. Might be tight. 1,111 sent using Fountain. Two things with this. One, I believe that it is really tight, and there is even another show in between those two. So I don't think I'd be able to squeeze in there on that. The second and more important one is kind of anyone allowed on there? I don't really know I know the No Agenda community is very strong, and they have this live stream set up. And I can't imagine the more shows that they have on there, the better, because then you just don't have this kind of not dead air time, but just replaying of old content. Whereas people, the point of having a live stream is to have live shows on there. But I don't tune into No Agenda that often. It's maybe like once every 3 months or something, and it's always kind of for research purposes. Is like anyone allowed to go on there? Is there any kind of I just don't want to step on any toes or to be accidentally saying or not fitting into the spirit of what that community is. So because I'm not deeply involved in it. So yeah, if you could send me a boost in or let me know via other means what is and what is not acceptable to have on that stream. But yeah, hell yeah, I'd love to do that, because at the moment mine's just going on to the Blueberry one, which I'm very appreciative of, and I believe they just have on there episodes of the Podcasting 2.0 and the Geek News Central podcast just playing on there. So yeah, maybe that's a good idea. I'm going to reach out to some people and do that. So thank you, Peter, and he sent in a satchel of Richards as well. And then we have Genebean coming in here right just before the podcast went live, and he says +1 to a show full of cops of pictures, and I assume he wants to say lots of pictures. And that is 5,000 sats sent using Cast-O-Matic. Great, first of all, thank you for that, Genebean. And that is, I suppose, the baller booster of this episode. Very much appreciated. And doing it on Cast-O-Matic as well. I really love to see that. Yes, okay, that seems to be a very common theme that people want to hear. So I am going to start accumulating value for value pitches. I'll start creating clips, but I'll perhaps make that the end of this season, much like I did for the end of season 2, where I had, this huge split setup of 23 different 23 different splits, all of which were going to people who I'd created clips of in those shows. So yeah, maybe I will do something like that. So I'll start accumulating that from now on. So yes, thank you very much for everyone who sent in a boostergram, and I really do appreciate that. It helps to fund all the audio hosting that I'm doing here, to give me a bit of compensation for my time. But the most important thing is to give me ideas, to give me a couple of excellent things from there. One, okay, I should do this show full of pictures, and that's given me a full new episode, which I wouldn't have thought of before. It's given me some ideas on live streams and how I can reach out to different communities and perhaps join into different communities. It's given me ideas of making sure that I'm not talking about things which aren't exactly value for value, or which perhaps are trending away from it. And it's a good recommendation for keeping me to do that. And one of the most important ones is just giving me encouragement. Lets me know that those numbers that I see on my dashboard for stats, which I actually don't look at, I only saw them accidentally the other day, that it gives me encouragement. Okay, there's actually people listening in and they actually care. So that's very, very much appreciated. Thank you everyone for contributing to the Value for Value podcast. I'm going to talk about some tips here, and I want to just take a tip that I've learned recently is taking some extra time to reach out, like I did with Cole McCormick for episode 400. So what we do at the Mere Mortals is we have a kind of little gamification system, and this is very much part of the value for value. So there's no, I guess once again you could say this is No. I think this is different, because I'm still providing the upfront value, which is the digital content I'm putting out, i.e. the podcast, and I'm just asking you to contribute. What I am saying is, if you reach 100,000 sats, so about $45 Australian of donations of support, we send out a shirt to you. And so we accumulate this across multiple shows, this being on the Mere Mortals, the book reviews, this one, and potentially any others that we start in the future. And I said this recently on the episode 400, which I had of the Mere Mortals, was I was going to do just kind of an update, because many of the people who are contributing here, Cole, McIntosh, and Genebean, they're starting to actually kind of reach high up on the levels of getting to that kind of 100,000 limit. And I know that 2 of them actually have now broken that limit. Cole, because he sent in a massive baller boost of 50,000 the other day. And McIntosh, I just believe with these last couple of ones, has reached that level as well. And so I'll be sending out a special edition Mere Mortal shirt out to them. And the learning for me from this was, sometimes with the value for value, it can feel, especially when you're starting, it feels like you're begging, or you're pleading, or you're being intrusive, or you're being weird, or you're being annoying when you're reaching out and asking people for help. And I don't know what this is. Perhaps this is just a societal thing of growing up, at least here in Australia. But I believe it's the same in many of the Western countries, and probably many places in the world, where you don't want to feel like you're intruding upon other people. And I don't think it's necessarily a pride thing. For me, at least, it feels like it's more of a, I just don't want to be a drain. I don't want to be a detriment to other people. And this is one where I did take some extra time to reach out. And I said to Cole and to McIntosh and Genebean, hey, if you check out episode 400, then you'll know kind of roughly where you are on the leaderboard, and just like it's that little bit of incentive. Like if you want to send in a bigger one to reach up to a shirt, this is how much you have to go. And I think, and look, I could have done that in better ways. I could have made it more explicit, but I did do it in my own kind of ways, and it did have results. Cole sent in a massive one because he was like, "Yes, damn it, I want that T-shirt. All right, here you go. Here's 50,000 sats to make sure I get there." And I just think this is a really important tip for people. And this is not related to money wise. Can be related to anything. If you're having a problem, if you're struggling with something, reaching out and just asking a simple question, and obviously don't be rude about it. But if there is something, I think it's better to take some action and just to go, I'm just going to try this out here. Let me send out a message to this person or this person. And I think there is a lot of value that can be gained just in the ask and just of reaching out, of just trying something. And it isn't intrusive, nor begging, nor pleading, nor weird, nor annoying in the vast bulk. And if you do hit that limit, then you can know, okay, I am being one of those things. Maybe I won't do it by sending 8 messages off to someone in 4 days. That is maybe being a bit much. So just a little tip there. I think for the value for value, being active and realizing that in the vast bulk of cases, you aren't doing it. Another example, I was trying to improve the live experience here. And so I was just checking out all of these apps. And as I'm doing it right now, I was sending out some messages to John Spurlock, who's got this boost bot. And he was saying maybe the pod ping is getting delayed somewhere in Dave's rider. In any case, since it still hasn't been written to Hive, no app will pick it up unless they manually refresh the feed for another reason. Feels looks good, by the way. Kudos to Todd at Blueberry. So there's something going on in the background, which is some things are breaking in the background of the system, which allows me to go live. Now, look, I'm just an uneducated pleb. I have no coding skills. Technology, I struck with. The reluctant geek is the nickname I've kind of coined for myself. But I was reaching out to all these people and saying like, hey, your app's not doing this. Hey, I think this is happening. And it kind of felt, I didn't want to be intrusive on people, but the responses I was getting was like, oh, thank you. I didn't even realize this was happening. Let me know next time. And so that was once again just that tip, which is just reach out to people if you're having a problem, or if you think that something is wrong, or you can help out in some way by providing feedback. I think do it. Just switch off that part of your brain which is feeling like you might be weird or you're annoying. Just do it. Follow the Nike the slogan that they have there. Another thing I wanted to highlight here, and this is the kind of app highlight, which section which I've talked about before. I'm going to change this to the app/service highlight, because there's a lot of cool things going on and services which you can get, which will help you out in your value for value journey. And one which has been with me right from the very beginning is a service called satoshis.stream. And they're pretty damn amazing. And one of the things that they do and the service that they provide is being able to filter out the messages that people are getting in and sending into your show in a non-technical way. Like I just mentioned, I'm not technically savvy. I hate dealing with tech problems. I hate software. I hate when my computer hardware blows up and I have to try and fix it. It's all painful to me and not enjoyable. I don't like that problem solving. And one of the great things about this service is you can get the messages from Boostergram, so these messages that people are sending in of support, and you can get it in a really accessible way, which you're probably already using, or if not, it's so simple to connect with Discord or to connect with Telegram. And so that's what they do. They have this thing where basically you have to you have to own your own feed, obviously, and have access to that. And basically they'll say like, look, we just need you to prove that you own your feed by putting in this code into one of the episodes. Once you've done that, it's like, okay, what we will now do is any messages that you have received as a Boostergram, we will have this option for you to connect it with your Discord, so it'll pop up automatically on a channel in your Discord, or on to a Telegram channel that you have with them called the Satoshi Stream Bot. And you can see all these messages, ding, 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 ding. As I was reading this out, I was reading all of these from the Discord, which I've got set up. And this is just amazing because I don't have to know anything about the Lightning Network or Bitcoin to make this happen. I just have to be able to do some relatively simple copying and pasting and following of instructions. So I will just say, if you're starting out and you're excited about the boostergram messages, but you're kind of put off by the Bitcoin aspect, by the Lightning Network aspect, I would just recommend checking out satoshis.stream. You can find them on the podcast index Mastodon at satoshis.stream. If you go to podcasterwallet.com, there is a link there which will show you how to use satoshis.stream as well. I use them for all of my shows. I am not paid from them. In fact, I am paying for them because they take a 4% split of whatever amount that I set up to them, which at the moment is 10%. I should probably make it higher, to be honest, because the service really is really great. And honestly, I wouldn't have got this far in the value for value of being able to support myself monetarily through these means without them. So just a strong recommendation for them. And yeah, once again, this is not an ad nor a sponsorship because I am paying for them. So this is going to get me onto my final value for value section. So I want to I was mentioning Adam Curry before, right at the beginning. So for this week, 15% of the show for this episode is going to Adam Curry, as once again a thank you for creating all of this kind of to begin with, or being very instrumental in the creating of this accessible open nature, this digital medium, which I use I use every single day. And if you were hearing just before, it was on the Boostergram Lounge. He helped create the jingle for that. That is Adam Curry, in that introduction section there. So this is just a 15% to thank him for helping out. And my last little value for value pitch here is I want to reiterate just how important I think this is. My conviction level of this is so high. It's probably higher on anything than I've ever felt before. When I first found value for value and this model and what it would mean, it kept me sleepless, and it still does. But funnily enough, the nights where I get interrupted sleeps are the nights before a value for value episode. So last night I was kind of tossing and turning because I was like, what exactly do I want to talk about today? How am I going to structure it? How can I reiterate just how important I think this is and why I think this is going to change so much, so much. Just the only way I want to earn a living in the future is through a contribution where people feel good about it. I don't want them to feel like it's they have to, like there's a bit of like pain when they're sending some money or value to me in general. I want them to feel good about it. And the only way I can see doing this is through the value for value model. Once again, the simplicity is I provide it upfront and you don't have to do anything. If you don't want to, if you don't get value from it, or if the value threshold is not enough for you to take action, that is completely understandable, reasonable, and encourageable. I don't think everything that everyone does in the world should be paid for their actions. No, they should be or receive value for their actions. No, I think there's plenty of things where, once again, one man's trash is another man's treasure. Things that I might be doing which I think are valuable, you could find actually a detriment. You would pay not to see it. And so this is where I think the value for value model is so important, and why it's the only way that I want to do this in the future. And once again, my conviction level is so high on this. It's because it makes the world a better place, ultimately. And that's kind of like one of my guiding principles in life. What if I'm thinking of doing things, do I think this is going to make it better for everyone? Or it's kind of that North Star. Will this help me? Will it help other people? And I think it does. I think this is one of the only things where I'm truly convinced that there's no downsides for me following the value for value model. Or if they are, they're downsides that I can tolerate. I can tolerate the fluctuations of not knowing how much I'm going to receive for an episode. And once again, it doesn't focus just on the money. It's on the value. It's these messages that I'm getting in are so much more valuable than the amounts that money sums up to in total. Now, look, in the total, yes, it will help very much and help cover costs and ultimately allow me to live. But that's all I want to do. I want to just live from this. I don't want to become a billionaire. I don't want to become a millionaire from this. I just want enough to be able to essentially keep doing what I'm doing now. So yeah, just reiterating, my conviction level is so high on this. And this is why on this show, there's never going to be, and across any of my shows, you will never hear an advertiser nor a sponsor. And I will try and be as 100% transparent with all of this as possible. I will go out of my way to read out basically every message to show like this is what I'm all about. This is legit. This is going to change the world, and I think this is the way forward for basically not all digital content, but for a lot of it. There is a huge room for why this makes sense in music, in text, in audio, in anything, in art, in anything that is digital, photography. I think it's going to change the world. So yes, thank you everyone for tuning into the Value for Value show for episode 41 here. I'm going to leave it at there. For the next episode coming up, I will be, you might have got a little bit depressed about, oh no, podcasting is becoming closed. It's losing all of these awesome things which made it awesome. But fear not, because we'll be diving into what podcasting 2.0 is and why this is actually, I don't want to say reclaiming, it's just keeping what podcasting is all about and what made it awesome in the first place. So be prepared for that. Tune in next week live at UTC midnight or UTC plus 10 for the Australian Eastern Standard Time. I should make that clear. 8 a.m. 10 a.m. UTC plus 10. So 10 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, which is UTC midnight on that border between the Tuesday and the Wednesday. So thank you everyone for tuning in. And until the next time, ciao for now. Kyrin out.